All right, now, y'all, it's that time of year. Okay, listen, don't avoid it. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to run away. Just take care of it. Get it done. They got Capone. They get criminal overlords. They get massive conglomerates shaking in their boots. There's no need to make them an enemy. Yes, I'm talking about the Aya, the Aura, and the S. Pay your taxes because it's corporate tax time. It's business tax time. It's personal tax time. But we're going to focus on the business. It's a necessary thing we all have to deal with. And the better that you know the numbers of your business, the better that you keep track and manage in basic accounting of your business, the easier this process is going to be. And in fact, it can actually be a very good benefit to you, right? Because you can show that your business is going in the right direction. It can also illustrate some opportunities for you to fix and improve your business. That's what we're going to get into today. How to avoid some of those pitfalls. We're going to talk to one of the best in the business right here in Chicago, but he does business all over the world. One of the best young minds to help your business out when doing your business taxes. If you're about to sit down and do them right now, if you're about to talk to your accountant, you're about to work with your CPA, you might as well just call them up right now, get on a video chat, pull up this episode, and get into it. Because frankly, we're going to get into what is necessary to keep the IRS off your back, or at the very least, to make this the easiest process that you've ever had paying your business tax. Let's get into avoiding IRS and tax nightmares today on the Ambition Show. Let's get it. All right, now, everybody. So it's tax season. Oh, yes, the fun part of the year. It is well underway already. But remember, if you are a business owner, you want to get on this as soon as possible. And at the first opportunity I had to bring on a person that I've trusted with my business, that I've known, brought up before multiple businesses, business owners have recommended this young man as well. As soon as I had the opportunity to get him on the show, I wanted to do so. Before we bring on Jeff, who's our guest today, before we bring him on, I just want to go over a few things and talking about why it's so important to know the numbers of your business, because the numbers of your business are your business. Now, not here to lecture y'all, just here to tell you a story. One of the best clients I've ever had, I've mentioned this gentleman quite a few times. He and I had a really good discussion one time about what we were doing with his website, and specifically the search engine optimization activities that we were working on his website. And I made mention just breaking down a few key areas of the business and what I was going over with a previous meeting. And he said, yeah, that's the numbers of the business. And he shared with me what I'm about to share with you guys right now, that he had noticed that so many other business owners, because he was a part of a good amount of, Chamber of Commerce, business associations, how many business owners just did not know the numbers of their business? And when we talk about the numbers of the business, we talk about breaking even, how much you brought in today, how much you think you're going to owe at the end of the year, which is very important going along with our topic today. But just in general, how much are you going to have to pay on taxes, payroll, how much to your vendors? The numbers of your business are your business, right? Because think about it this way. If you notice month after month, you're in the negative. Month after month, you're spending way more than you're earning. What do you think is going to happen at the end of the year? What do you think is going to happen when you have personal emergency, business emergency that calls for you to put in extra dollars towards an investment, towards getting something built, getting something fixed? It's just like your personal numbers, right? You never want to have your business in a position, and this is the part that when we were talking about the numbers that really stuck out to me, you never want to have your business in a position where if you have an unforeseen expense, if you have a situation that comes up and you need to draw and you need to have additional funds, you go back to the coffers, you go into your bank accounts, you go to the credit lines of credit, and you notice you don't have it. Not only do you not have it, you're actually in the negative. Now, what I touched on right there is the same thing that we've heard for year after year after year. that the majority of Americans are one check away. One check away. In other words, losing that job, boom, check's done, over with. That's the typical American. Or they can't prepare because they don't have the funds to do it for an unexpected expense of $500 or more. Now that's actually increased because at one time it was $300. So apparently some people get some extra money. Well, they may be able to take care of a $350 or $400, but they probably can't take care of $500. And I'm not making fun of you. I'm saying that's a fact. That is a fact of what's happening in the world right now, but especially in America. Business owners are in the same boat, if not worse. Know the numbers of your business. And if that's not your job 24/7, that's understandable to a point. To a point. And the only reason why I say that is because you could probably go to any major corporation. I'm talking about where they have hundreds, maybe even thousands of employees. And many CEOs or presidents, directors even, they might not be able to tell you every single number of the business, right? Because it's at that level, but you're not at that level. You're not at that level. You have 3 locations. You have 1 location. You have 2 locations. You have 5 employees. You have 10 employees. You have 1 employee. Bringing that up because before you get to that higher end where, yes, now you can support having an entire army of people who their job is to know those numbers. Make it your job to know your numbers. And as you grow, you find the right people to put into place or to bring in that their job is to know those numbers. And you still have your finger on the pulse. Because you might not know, hey, okay, how much did we bring in last night? But you may know overall how much we're earning over the last quarter. That should be in your memory bank. So we're going to bring on Jeff. And we're going to get into why it's so important to understand the ins and outs of your business and why working with a professional that's their focus. That's what they do. Will save you not only a significant amount of time, but money as well. Because we often think as a business owner, okay, well, how can I cut this corner by not hiring a professional here? Some things you don't play around with. And maybe it's just a start. Maybe it's your personal finance. And then you bring it to your business. But never, ever, ever think that knowing the numbers of your business is beneath your position. That is an incredibly important factor of your business, is to know the numbers. What's my break even? What's the old school acid test? Like how much cash can I get my hands on? How much do I need to sell to make a profit? Getting it down to how much do I need to work to get to a profit? Basics, real basics. So when we come back, we're going to bring on Jeff and we're going to get into what are some opportunities that are there for small business owners, whether there's some opportunities there for entrepreneurs, find out more about Jeff, his business, and what he provides to small business owners as a tax professional and as an accounting professional. And then, of course, find out more about Jeff in general and his words of advice and how you can apply them, whether it be to your services as a tax and accounting professional, if you're looking to start one and start a business in that field, in that industry, or if you're looking for a person and an expert in accounting, what are the questions you should be asking? We're going to get all that and more from Jeff when we come right back. All right, everybody. So welcome back to the Ambition Show. And I have a great guest. Now, this man has saved me some money, saved me a lot of time, which is a lot more valuable than money, everybody. It's a lot more valuable than money. And one of the things that gets missed a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we think we can do everything on our own. And I've brought this up so many times. Go to a professional, seek professional assistance, seek professional help, both mentally and financially. But seek it out, because that's usually where you hurt yourself the most, trying to do everything. And working with this gentleman has helped me a great deal. I've suggested him to others, and I was so happy he took time out of his schedule. That's why we have him right now at this time period, especially, we know what time it is, that time of year, like I brought it up before, you can't get around this one's tax season. I would like everybody, thank you so much. Welcome Jeff Badu, who is a fantastic wealth builder, accountant, entrepreneur, investor. Let's just get right into it. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Aaron. Definitely appreciate the time. I know we go way back, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you today.
Awesome, bro. And like Jeff just mentioned, we do go way back, and this is the power of networking, y'all. If you work with the right people, they can connect you with the right people. They can connect you with people who challenge you and keep you growing. So Jeff, just explain, like I brought up to the audience before about your services and about you being an accountant, but just tell us a little bit more about your services, your agency, and how you help small businesses.
So I was born and raised in Ghana, came to the U.S. when I was 8 years old. And fast forward, I attended the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, where I received my bachelor's degree in accounting as well as my master's degree in accounting. I then went on, or while I was there, I was interning at PricewaterhouseCoopers, or PwC, which at the time and probably still is the #1 public accounting firm in the world. And, was able to get a lot of great experiences, was able to learn a lot from that. But I was also working on my own business plan, my own business. And in September of 2016, when I was working full time at PwC, I decided to take the leap of faith and launch the business, right? To leave PwC, where I was working at full time. It was really the only company that I've ever really worked at, like the only corporate company I ever worked at. And in exchange for a full-time entrepreneurship role. And that's when I founded, on September 30th, 2016, I founded Badu Tax Services, LLC, which is a CPA firm and tax firm that does tax preparation, tax planning, and tax representation for individuals and businesses across all 50 states in the US. And we also have clients that are physically based in over 25 countries at the moment. What we primarily do is help small businesses save money on taxes and basically maximize their tax savings, so that they can ultimately build that multi-generational wealth and create that abundant lifestyle. And that company eventually morphed into other companies, including our real estate investment company, our financial literacy organization. And lastly, why we do it? Because my purpose in life is to inspire and support the super hungry to take hold of infinite resources in order to create an abundant lifestyle.
I love how you put in your purpose, and I'm jumping right to that because that's what a lot of people forget. I've brought that up in multiple conversations with clients about branding. It's your why. It's why you do everything that you do, and that's what pushes you through it. I mean, for you to just jump from one corporate position, for a person who's had a couple of corporate positions, and go right into entrepreneurship early on. That's, like you said, that's a leap. That's not an easy, because you haven't really seen the world necessarily. You haven't seen a lot of different aspects, and you may have not come to the conclusion like, okay, that environment doesn't work for me. Let me try another environment, and then you figure out it's entrepreneurship. It's immediately entrepreneurship. So, with that being your why, if you will, let me ask you this: why accounting? Because just wondering, because there's so many ways to help people, and I believe this is one of the most important ways, especially for business owners. But what was it accounting? Like, what drew you to that field and that industry?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. And so basically, why accounting? Number one, growing up in Ghana, we're filled with entrepreneurs, right? It's a very entrepreneurship heavy environment. And so seeing people out there, running businesses, whether they're selling things on the streets, whether they're a mechanic, right? I just saw people that were in the realm of owning their own business. I said, wow, okay, maybe one day I want to be just like them. And then on top of that, both of my parents are entrepreneurs. My dad is a real estate developer in Ghana. He basically, when he won the immigration lottery to come to the U.S., he was working, sending some money back home and buying land for the low, and basically being able to build some properties on them. Right. My mom also did the same thing. She's also a real estate developer. She owns a retail company. She does a million things. Right. And so watching them said, okay, everybody around me is literally an entrepreneur. And they say, show me your friends, show me your environment, and I'll show you your future. And for me, the people I was around were all entrepreneurs. So what did I become or want to become was an entrepreneur. And so from there, growing up, I started seeing some different things, and it was in high school and senior in high school. That's when I took an assessment that allowed me to see where I wanted to what I wanted to be, right? Basically, it's like one of those high school assessments, career assessments. It was actually it was junior year in high school. And essentially that based on those questions that led me into them saying that I should become an accountant. And yeah, I was like, okay, that makes sense. I like numbers. So one thing about me is that growing up, I was always good at math, right? Math was a very strong suit, something I was very skilled in. And so naturally, I like numbers. And then you add the business aspect, wanting to own a business, being surrounded by entrepreneurs. And then that's when I went on to study accounting at the U of I, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And that's what led me to where I am today. Yes, sir.
Okay. No, that's fantastic, especially the fact that you saw what, like you said, you saw entrepreneurs, different ventures, different areas, but another way to help those entrepreneurs. And for you to be an entrepreneur, you kind of put them together. I mean, the perfect kind of almost actually the best industry to do that. Because it's one of those areas you running a business, starting things. Sometimes you ain't got time to track these numbers down, or you need somebody who's just knowledgeable to help you and better how to organize those things. So, no, appreciate you sharing that, and that's great that you come from a great entrepreneurial environment. And that's once again, it's all about that environment. So, when selecting an accountant, if you're an entrepreneur, small business owner, big business, doesn't matter. What are some things? What are some things that we should be looking for? Like when we're like, I saw your presentation working with a few of our associates in our network. Mm-hmm. But let's say someone doesn't have that network. Like, what are some of those things they should look out for? Is that's the accountant for me, or at least that's the person I should talk to about becoming my accountant?
Yeah, that's a great question. So with this question, I want to take it back a little bit into more of why I became an accountant. And I also wanted to help businesses. I basically wanted to ensure people knew their numbers, right? And I found out that accounting was really the backbone of a business. I found out that accounting was something that you really want to be good at, to truly, like if you look at a lot of the billionaires, multimillionaires, and of course, it doesn't mean that that's the end all be all, right? It's not the end goal at the end of the day, but it is something to aspire to be. When you look at those folks, a lot of them, they have some type of background, some type of expertise as it relates to accounting, finance. And I said, yeah, this is something I can see myself doing. And so to answer your question as to what should somebody look for in a professional is I asked the blatant question, what is your strategy, right? What's your tax strategy? If you're hiring a tax accountant, ask them, what is your tax strategy? If you're hiring a plumber and they're telling you, oh, you should do this to your house, you should check this every 3 months. I'm like, okay, what's your strategy, right? How do you maintain your home when it comes to your plumbing? Because the challenge is if they're telling you one thing and they're doing a whole nother, that makes them a hypocrite. That means that they're not really looking out for your best interest. Somebody who practices, or for lack thereof, who doesn't practice what they preach, that to me is somebody I can't trust, right? That means they lack integrity and they're giving you advice probably just to make some money off of you. So my question is, what is your strategy? What is your tax strategy? How do you handle your taxes, right? I'm asking that question from the jump. And then, of course, what experiences do you have? Like, who have you worked with? What type of clients have you worked with? Can you, if this is not public, then you can ask them for some client testimonials, maybe some references. One thing about tax and accounting firms, we can't directly share with you client contacts or names or anything like that. It's against our duty of confidentiality. But clients post online reviews, right? So I say, hey, you can feel free to check out some of the online reviews. And if they're not there, then you just want to get some type of confirmation, some type of clarity when it comes to that. So all in all, there's two things I like to ask. Number one, what is your strategy? And number two, basically what experiences, right? How have you helped others in my position? And how many years have you been doing this? And not that it's the most important thing, but it does matter though. It does matter for sure.
No, that makes perfect sense. You brought up a really good point just when evaluating, because I've given that suggestion to someone else about different area, not accounting, of course, but just in my area of expertise. And look at their branding strategy, look at their websites, look at their things that they do. And like you said, you just don't want to work with a hypocrite. But a lot of people, they'll hear, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, but the proof is in the pudding. What do you do and how do you do it? So that's a great way to evaluate. And they're very basic, very straightforward. But like you say, get right to the jump. Hey, time is money, right? Get out the way. So going back to that about, entrepreneurs, let's be real. What are some of the things that you see common mistakes that maybe those small business owners and entrepreneurs could be doing from just a financial standpoint, right before they even get to the account? Like maybe some things that they could do to help themselves, or at least make it a very easier relationship for them for the account, or easier time for the account.
Yeah, definitely. I would say number one is not working with a professional, period, right? Not basically even seeking out the help of a professional. And so, as you mentioned earlier in the discussion, Aaron, that you want to have professionals on your team. Henry Ford, for example, he was very good at hiring people that were very good, right, at what they do. And that's how he became very good at what he does. And so, in a way, understand your area of expertise, your circle of influence. Understand what we call your pocket of genius, something that you're really good at, and understand that there's others around the world that are spending thousands of hours perfecting a certain craft. So, as an accountant, I spent well over 25,000 hours perfecting my craft, right? So that got to mean that I have to know somewhat of what I'm doing, at least to some extent. I may not know it all. Nobody knows it all, right? Nobody's perfect. Nobody will ever be perfect. But basically, you want to make sure that you have experts on your team. So that's the one of the first mistakes. Number two is not taking the numbers seriously, right? Just not being aware of your numbers. In that, if you don't know your numbers in your business, you don't quite have a business. You have a hobby. Right? If you don't know your numbers in your business, you don't quite have a business, you have a hobby. There's nothing wrong with a hobby. But if you're truly taking yourself seriously as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as someone who's there to help people, you have to know your numbers, right? And it's not that you have to be the one that generates the numbers. You have to be aware. You should know how much in sales you made today, right? Or yesterday, let's just say. You should know to the dollar, hey, I made X amount of dollars in sales yesterday. That's something you should be aware of, right? I feel, at least. And so not being aware of the numbers is basically one mistake. Not using tools like QuickBooks, that allow you to automate the finances a bit, allow you to have more real-time data, or at least having somebody who can teach you how to use QuickBooks. And so I think oftentimes people think that accountants are very expensive, or I can't afford them. And, but the thing is, can you afford to not have them on your team? That's the real question. You may say that you can't afford something, but can you afford to not have it? That's the bigger question, right? And if you answer the question like, hey, I cannot afford to not have this person, then the second question is, how can I afford that? Yeah. And so usually when people come to us, those are the three most common mistakes that I see: not having a professional, not really paying close attention to the numbers.
Right.
And then basically just the whole aspect of, oh, it's too expensive. And it's not. What's more expensive is you losing out on money today. That's way more expensive.
Way more expensive, right? Man. The repercussions of it all. and I love that you touched on two things I was going to ask you a little later, but you touched on one right on. Let me just get to it. You brought up, like, there's a lot of software, there's a lot of, different technology out there that entrepreneurs, or even individuals, even if they're not a small business owner, they could be using to leverage. What are some platforms that you trust? Like, of course, QuickBooks is one of the big ones. What are some other platforms that maybe you trust that you could, just suggest to, those who maybe they might be able to afford QuickBooks, or they just maybe didn't have good luck with it? What are some platforms that you would recommend?
Yeah, QuickBooks, of course, is my number one when it comes to numbers and finances. But if you're having trouble with it, or you quote unquote feel you can't afford it, right, whatever the case may be, then there's Wave, right? Wave accounting is also pretty good. I've heard great things about it. Now you have a tool called Monarch, right? Monarch. And so Monarch is pretty good. And when it comes to personal budgeting, which is another component of, I know it's not directly related to your business, but it can affect your business. It can affect your cash flow management. And so Empower is a great platform that allows you to create your personal budget, track your net worth. I see how you're scaling up as an individual and as a business owner. And so QuickBooks is my number one, but as a secondary, it's Wave, and then also Monarch, and then the Empower for personal budgeting, personal finances. And then I'll give you two more tools: Credit Karma for checking your credit score, your personal credit score. And then for your business credit score is NAV, NAV. It's very, very good for checking your business credit score and also, looking at some business credit options as well.
Okay. Well, no, thank you. And you hit me to when I definitely have heard of Wave. Hadn't heard of Monarch, but I've heard of Wave for sure. And I've been using Empower for a little while. Once again, another professional like yourself. And that's the whole point. Like I brought up networking and, somebody suggested that to me. I'm like, Empower, like what you talking about? Like, okay, let me just see. And it was, like you said, very easy. But those are the type of things like some people may not have, great relationship or at one point couldn't afford one platform. It's always good to have a few options. Like I say, until platforms pay me, I'm not just aligned to one. But speaking of being with professionals, and you gave some great tips clearly from your experience and clearly from your knowledge and those 25,000 hours or more probably by now. But what are some things that we need to be on the lookout for? Because you've been studying, that time of year is here. What has been going on? What's been changing? Just some quick tips of things that maybe with tax code changes or things that we need to understand that are coming down the road or maybe have already occurred that we may not be aware of because we're so deep into our business. What are some things that we should be aware of from your own study and expertise that you can tell us to look out for?
Yeah, so one is, since we have a new president in the United States of America, right, from a tax standpoint, there's going to be some major changes that are going to benefit a lot of people tremendously, especially small businesses. For example, the child tax credit is most likely going to get increased for having a child. It will increase to $5,000 instead of where it is at currently, at $3,600. And so it's $5,000 per dependent. For my businesses, if you buy a car, for example, now for 2025, you may be able to claim what we call bonus depreciation of up to 100% of the purchase price, right? So if you buy a car for $50,000, you may be able to claim the full $50,000 in 2025. As of right now, with the current law, it's 40%, right? You're able to claim 40% of the car's purchase price.
Okay.
And so if we take $50,000 times 0.4, that's $20,000. Now it will most likely get bumped up, right? When the tax reform comes out, most likely at the end of this year, effective 2025, it will go up to the 50,000. So those are a few things. There's a big tax reform that's coming our way. I know there's a lot of noise out there in the world right now, but we'll get to the good stuff hopefully here very soon.
No. Great points. And I know a couple people in that, a couple areas where, vehicles are part of their business. And that, it's simple stuff like that we could easily miss when we're, like I said, our heads are in the sand working with our business. We can easily miss things like that. What are some things that business owners can do to prepare for tax years that we should, we're here right now, obviously in 2025, but in the future and beforehand, what are just some things that from your own advice and your expertise that business owners could do to have things in their favor just to make the tax season a little bit easier of a process?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. And so it's funny, I actually wrote an article on my personal website, jeffbadu.com, that covers this very well topic. But basically, some of the points that I made in the article is that, number one, you want to make sure that you have a registered business. As simple as it sounds, a registered business, LLC, limited liability company, or corporation. Right, you want to have that established. You want to get your tax ID number, your business checking account, preferably a business credit card account as well. You want to have your QuickBooks nice and in order, your transactions being categorized, or having somebody who's working on it, who's helping you with that through a bookkeeping service. And then from there, you're gathering all your other documents, your W-2 forms, your 1099 forms, 1098s, all the different tax forms out there. You combine that with a profit and loss report in your business. You hand it over to your tax accountant, preferably a tax strategist, who can then create a tax plan. Yeah, I didn't go to tax return, but a tax plan for you based on that return, so that they can help you strategize and see if there's additional strategies, additional things that you may be missing that you can claim as a business tax deduction through the service of tax planning. And then once you decide to do that, you make the changes necessary. Then you go out and file your taxes with a properly planned tax return, so that now you're maximizing your tax savings. And that's what we do in our firm. We actually even go back 3 years in the past and do that exercise for you.
Okay. And see, there you go. I guarantee somebody listening right now, like a tax plan, like I heard of business plan, heard of a marketing plan, never heard of a tax plan. And it's little stuff like that. little misses like that. I remember the first time I've heard of a tax plan, and I said, being honest, I'll probably talk about myself, said basically the same thing. Like, oh, okay, I should have a plan for that. Makes perfect sense because it's such a big, important aspect of your business. And of course, it's a big important aspect of the country in general. You should have something like that. You should be planning for that. So, and also I'm not going to let you go today without getting a link to that blog, because you wrote a blog article. We all about sharing whatever we're reading around here. So make sure I get a link to that blog article, because that's a fantastic piece of information somebody could take from. And it also shows, what you guys do for clients like myself, like others in the past. And speaking of books, or speaking of reading, I meant to ask you this, and I don't think I did, but I would love to know, what's a book suggestion that you would have? Like and it doesn't have to necessarily be about taxes. It could be about entrepreneurship, small business. It could be about personal growth. What's a book that you would recommend to our audience?
Yeah, it's a great question, Aaron. And so my number one book outside of the Bible, right, is Rich Dad Poor Dad. Rich Dad Poor Dad. It is an absolute must read. Every entrepreneur, every business owner, every human being on this planet's got to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's written by Robert Kiyosaki, who basically talks about he had two dads, not biological, right, but just two dads in his life. His biological dad, and then he had his friend's dad. And so, was able to teach him. His friend's dad was the quote unquote rich dad, and was able to teach him rich, wealthy principles, owning a business, paying yourself first, for example. I mean, such important tools that me personally, I didn't even read that book until after I started my business. Can you imagine? Had I read that book before I started my business, I would have approached it a lot differently. I would have got a business coach from the jump. Right, we got a marketing strategist, all these experts. And yes, you're wondering, how can I afford these people? Well, that's the question that you want to ask. And that's the question you want to solve. That's the question that the book helps you really think about. Is it's not that you can't afford it, right? If you say you can't afford, like, we can literally say that we can't afford it to everything in life, to that trip, to that shirt, to that car. We can say all of that. But if it's truly valuable to you and it add value in your life, then the real question becomes, it's not if I can afford it, it's how can I afford it? And so he shows you ways to help you afford things, right? To invest in things, changing the word expense to investments, for example. So Rich Dad Poor Dad is really good. I also have my book out there. I am a 5-time author, very grateful, very fortunate to be a 5-time author. And I have a book called Infinite Expansion, How to Infinitely Expand Your Vision of Abundance. It's a story about my life purpose and the 12 steps to creating an abundant lifestyle, infinite expansion.
Okay. Yeah. I asked for the blog link. Give me the book link. just because, and I knew you written a couple of the books. I know this recent book can't come out, but no, make sure that, just because, like, and I know that's not what we're really talking about, but that's another form of revenue for people. If you don't understand that, like writing books, writing blog articles, monetizing that, sharing your expertise doesn't mean you have to become a regular author. I think that's your only focus. It's just another opportunity to share your expertise and your knowledge. I've brought up multiple times when people ask about the few, and not too many, include yourself, but not too many like super successful people. I know yourself and a few others. And I often tell people, one of the richest people I met was, I say it because the way he approached it to me, or the way he shared it with me, is that he's like, I make money off of shit. Compost, dirt. He's like, but that's it. That was his area. He literally had a business. He had multiple workers, employees. And he's like, you can make money doing anything, whatever your passion is. But the purpose is, okay, this is one avenue. Now, what's another avenue? I can bring in more revenue. So he literally would train people. He became a consultant in that area. You're writing books. I love it. I can't wait to see it. Better get a link. That's all I'm gonna say with that one. Because we definitely want to share, opportunities for people to learn from, young entrepreneurs like yourself. And for everybody out there, young, yes, Jeff is definitely a lot younger than me. I'm an old ass man. And I'm learning from young brothers like Jeff, because that's the whole point. It's not about age. Okay. It's not about age. You can learn from anybody, anywhere. You want to network with the right people. And it was a great young photographer who connected Jeff and I, just to throw that out there. So that shows you, photographer connected the accountant with the marketing guy. Go fake. Never know. Never know. All right. So Jeff, I know you're busy. I'm not going to hold up too much of your time, but I definitely want to get a few more pieces of advice from you to help out small business owners. So you helped out with proactively making that tax plan, working with that accountant to make that tax plan. When it comes to, and you start off with the formation of business, which is perfect. What about any advice working with employees, contractors, freelancers, any advice that you could help out with that? Because a lot of people right now, they're working with like outsourcing, offshore, and just tips for you, tips for us. And I know you can't get too specifics, of course, because you haven't worked with that client yet. They could be in different states, but just what are some tips of advice when working with those types of, the type of corporate or business structure, if you have freelancers, contractors, or full-time employees?
Yeah, that's a great question, Aaron. And so basically, from a tax standpoint, we want to make sure that they understand what they can do, right? Let me flip the question in that. Let's make sure they understand, the contractor, the W-2 employee understands what they can do from a tax standpoint, because sometimes you're paying somebody maybe a lower rate than what the industry average is, right? Or maybe they feel they should be getting paid more. But if I can show you how to reduce your tax liability to the point where you start making now above the industry average, right? Through deductions, legitimate legal tax strategies, such as your car, your home office, your food, your travel, your Bahamas trips and all that, right? If I can show you, or if I can point you in the direction of somebody who can show you how to do those things, now all of a sudden it's not, oh, I'm making, $30 an hour, which the industry average is 35 an hour. Now I'm making 40 an hour, basically, because I am saving the tax savings, the extra 25% that I'm saving in taxes is more than someone who'll be earning 35 an hour as a W-2 employee, for example, and not able to write off anything. As a W-2 employee, you can't really write off anything unless you are a business, you have a side business, maybe, a third-party retailing business, Uber, Lyft, all that good stuff. And so basically what we can really do is we can sit down with that team and we can sit down with your staff, coach them. I actually did this last night with a client that we work with. He has a decent amount of folks that are in the medical space that work with him. And he said, hey, can you put together a tax strategy class? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And now they probably value working with him more. Right. They're probably going to make more money with him, right? Exactly. They're probably going to work together longer. And so just as you basically are learning, right? You're listening to this podcast today, you're listening to the show today, just as you're learning, pay it to them, pay it back, pay it forward to them as well. And that way it's like, we're all building as a community. We're all building well together. They're going to stay with you longer. They're going to be happier when they come to work, and they are ultimately going to make more money as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a lot more value for that business owner. Like that's huge. That's huge. Because let's be honest, like a lot of people don't feel that level of camaraderie and that level of, my owner, or not my owner, but my business owner or my employer is looking at you. Not owner. We ain't touching that. We ain't getting that. But they're looking out for me to kind of help me out and help me navigate this thing. So going a little bit deeper with that one. Do you do that only in person, or do you do that virtually? Like, how does that process work when you're working with an owner and maybe their staff?
That's a great question, Aaron. So we're 100% virtual, 100% remote CPA firm. We can work with clients anywhere in the U.S. Okay. We have clients that physically live in different countries, Mexico, Nigeria, Ghana, India, right? A bunch of different countries. And so we can work with any client anywhere. So when we're working with business owners, founders, we're typically working with them virtually, and we can put together workshops for them. We can put together, hey, you got 5 people, 10 people, 100 people. We'll put together a private, intimate workshop that allows your team, your staff to ask questions so that you can add more value to them. And when you do that, they're going to return a favor and add more value to you as well.
That's right. And I knew when I first met you, you at that time were just a one-man army. How many do you have on your team now?
25 people.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, bring that up just for anyone listening. Like, it's especially when you start. I love how you put it as, working with those business owners, helping them create value for the rest of their team. You create value for your team, and that's why it's easy for you to build a team. I've brought that up in multiple times, multiple episodes, how it was when I brought on a team, not only did I grow more, but just in general, you saw giving that value back. So I just wanted to bring that up so people know, hey, it's great to be a one-person army. That's cool and all. But even a freelancer, you can have a team working with you. Even as a contractor, you have a team working with you. And you mentioned that, the person could physically, or the owner of the business could be living in another country, but as long as that business is registered in the 50 United States, you're there, that you can work with them, correct? Just making sure that
Exactly.
Perfect.
Exactly.
Just because we got some digital nomads out there that listen, so I want to make sure they understand. Hey, Jeff can help you, man. Jeff can look out for you, helping me, and I'm right here with him, but he can help you too. All right. So before I let you go, I asked you about your book, and that's a great book. Rich Dad Poor Dad. Read that quite a few times, but I want to check out your book next as well. But I would like to get a quote from you. And the reason why I asked for a quote, just to make sure everybody understands, it's not necessarily like, okay, it's a quote you can apply to every aspect of life. Maybe it's one thing maybe it can help you turn some things around, but also to get where your mindset is. And clearly it helped you at one point, maybe recently, maybe it's a quote you just picked up, but just something that you like, hey, I look back on this and I'm like, that resonates with me. What's a quote that you could share?
So I actually want to share two.
Go ahead.
The first one is one that I actually, as a freshman in college, in my email signature, I had this quote, and actually one of my professors like, wow, like for someone at your age to have this quote is quite impressive. And, he actually made me say it a few times in class, but that is Stephen R. Covey, and motivation is a fire from within, right? Motivation is a fire from within. If someone else lights that fire under you, right? If someone comes into your life and lights that fire under you, then chances are it's going to burn very briefly. So motivation is a fire from within. If someone else lights that fire under you, chances are it will burn very briefly. All right. Okay. And the most important quote that I've ever learned in life, and I'm on a serious note when I say this, the most important quote that will allow me to live a fulfilled, abundant lifestyle, allow me to overcome any obstacle, allow me to achieve greatness in everything that I do is, with God, anything is possible. With God, anything is possible, right? And man, what a very important quote. There's a lot of noise in the world right now, a lot of things going on. And if you just bring life down to that one quote, that with God, anything is possible. What limits will you ever see in life? The sky is truly the limit, and you can even go beyond that. You feel like you can go even beyond that. And so with God, anything is possible. It is the best quote, the single biggest quote that I take with me every single day. And that's what helps me fulfill that abundant lifestyle each and every day.
Okay. No, that's great. And yeah, I'm gonna let you overstep and take the two. It's okay. I did ask for no, but but no. It's just funny the timing of everything, because I had a conversation recently with someone about some things that they were struggling with, and I had some similar struggles some years back in the stages of with their business, but also with family. And it was a very almost completely aligned statement of just anything's possible. You just have to control what you can control, right? Control what you can control, but give it to your faith, give it to your beliefs, give it to God. And keep that in mind. Just with faith, anything is possible. You see it through. I'm glad to especially see a person like yourself who's accomplished so much, such a young age, and still growing and still going, to say something like that. And then if I'm not mistaken, the book, Stephen Covey, which book was that? A particular book that he said that he made that statement in, or was it?
Honestly, I just got it from a quote. Like I saw it online somewhere. I'm like, man, I can resonate with this, and I put this in my email signature in college, and I read it every day, multiple times a day, and it really got me going in college.
Yeah. No, that's just a hell of a statement. Just like you said, because I think about that all the time. People like, oh, my dad motivated me to do this, my mom motivated me to do this, and then you see how that kind of goes away. And it's like, well, yeah, was it you or was it them? And that just aligns with it perfectly. All right. So Jeff, before I let you get out of here, where can we find you? Where can we find your business? How can we locate you online? Let the people know.
Yes, indeed. First and foremost, thank you, Aaron. I'm truly honored, truly blessed to be invited by you on the show today. Definitely always a pleasure to speak to yourself, right? To speak to a group of like-minded people. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And in terms of where to find me, it's my personal website is the easiest one. That is jeffbadu.com, jeffbadu.com. That shows you about my background, things that I'm up to. I have videos, articles, books. All my books are on there as well. And if you're ever looking to call and speak, right, it's 773-819-5675, 773-819-5675. If you're interested in our tax services, just go to badutaxservices.com. That is Badu, B-A-D-U, taxservices.com. And, you can feel free to reach out to us. We're more than happy to help. We assist clients all across, the country, all across the world. And yeah, truly honored to be here. But jeffbadu.com, JEFFBADU.com is my primary contact information.
All right, then. Appreciate you, Jeff. And we'll make sure that the contact information is in the comments of this episode, as well as wherever we share it out. Everybody knows we share it on iTunes, Spotify. Of course, YouTube is my favorite place to be. but we share it on all major podcast platforms. And Jeff, once again, I know you, like I said, you're very busy, but you've always taken the time to help myself and the clients that I've brought to you, because I see the expertise and I see the knowledge and I always want to share it. That's the whole purpose of the show is not to just capture a bunch of knowledge and never, share it with anybody. Is to make sure that we're all being able to kind of take from each other's ideas and work and grow to reach the goals that we've set for ourselves. So thank you so much for taking the time out today, brother. And best to you and yours. And man, I will be by because I need some tax deductions. And I ain't gonna find them. I'll tell you right now, I'm building websites. I don't have the time. That's the whole point, y'all. Do you and go to professionals like Jeff. Thanks once again, brother.
Amen. Thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you. All right, now everybody, that was a great interview with Jeff Badu. And once again, we have his contact information. We have where you can pick up his book. Check out that blog article. Great blog article, by the way. One thing I will say about that is that shows you the power of content marketing, right? See, this is why I'm about to go on a tangent. I have to do it. I have to do tangent time. I have to do it. This shows you something, okay? It's incredibly important to leverage different opportunities, different forms of content to get your message out there. Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, blogs are around. Everyone pretty much now has a blog. But a lot of times we forget that every industry has something to share in different ways they could do it. Brought up, Jeff also has a radio show. And I brought that up for us. I brought that up in an interview. But also to call out the blog that he's dropping, he's adding new content there on a regular basis. That's just another way that you should be going out there and consuming information. Maybe it's the podcast. Maybe it's a radio show. Maybe it's a blog. Doesn't matter. One, regularly, hey, have an account blog that you follow. Have a legal blog that you follow. Yes, I'm taking this from kind of a personal practice. I just share something that I do. There are 3 lawyers that have blogs. I mean, they're all on their websites, of course, but 3 lawyers that I follow. 1 accountant. And 2, one person specifically does marketing for non-for-profits. The other person is they regularly have experience being a board of director for non-for-profits. I follow those blogs. 2 of them have podcasts. I follow those podcasts. Also a project manager. I follow his podcast and I follow his blog. Bringing that up because of course we get a lot of information from news and from places, but it's always good to hear from an individual or an agency, if they're subject matter experts, and hear their take on a lot of the topics that are specific to those areas, right? So when I'm looking for legal information, I'm not just running around social media trying to find somebody to follow. There's people I hear on a regular basis. I've, kind of flushed them out a little bit, what I'm saying, to understand okay, do they know what they're talking about, what they're sharing, that kind of stuff. That is incredibly important. And on the flip side of that, that's incredibly important as a professional. But on the flip side of that, if that's one of your areas or you are a subject matter expert, I don't care if you're a plumber. I don't care. I brought my man up a couple times in stories. If I can get him on the episode, that'd be great. But I brought my man up a couple times. The gentleman who, like I said, he was a millionaire, but his job was scooping and handling shit. Dirt. This is the way he proposed it to me. I will say that once again. It's the way he shared it with me. But if your area is gardening, if your area is interior design, if your area is fashion design, if your area is alterations, being very specific in what you do with apparel and clothing, find a way to share what you do. You're going to leverage it, and you can make an entire new revenue stream that so many people miss out on. Can't tell you how many times I see this. When I go to a website, I've mentioned this before, but there's two key areas on a website that can not only bring you traffic, not only bring you profit, but just also profit from revenue, from advertising, affiliates, something like that, but also can bring you clients on a regular basis. That's your About Me section or About Us, and that is your blog. I'll say that again. Two of the most underutilized, still to this day, surprisingly, even though we have 3 to 5 times more blogs than we have podcasts, for whatever reason, we still have a lot of websites out here that don't have two key areas: About Me or About Us, and a blog. Leverage that. Now you can go here, you can read Jeff's blog, see what he's talking about, see what his team members are talking about, get a better understanding of their overall, offerings, and you can make a determination. Do you want to have an initial call with them? But definitely check out Jeff. We really appreciate him coming through. And he gave us the book of this episode. Now, this is a book I haven't actually recommended. This book is a classic, really. I haven't recommended this book yet. I thought it was a little kind of obvious for some people, like, hey, but you never know. You never know. Some people haven't touched on it. But clearly, if it inspired him, if it connected with him, you see or you've heard what he's accomplished and what he's producing, what he's doing for people. Definitely worth checking out. If you haven't heard of it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Now, it has basically become a standard, like that 10 standard book, right? I would say like the top 10, maybe top 15, top 25, but for a lot of people, it's that 10. It's in that top 10 of a standard to read as a young professional. Here's what people often miss about the whole thing, in my opinion, especially about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Whether it's an accurate story of the true background and story of a person, or it's fictional. Here's the key of it, and I truly mean this. Can you apply it in real life? Because clearly you've heard from somebody who has. Clearly we've heard from thousands of people who have. Applying those practices, applying the principles, and applying the mindset that has helped them achieve a goal. Read it for yourself and determine that, because it might not be the information's wrong. It's just the information in the way it's presented. Remember the first time I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I thought about, well, how can I apply this to my life right now? See, what a lot of people often do when they read books, especially books when it comes to motivation, self-help, things like this, they think they have to look at it from the perspective of the author. No, it's how do you apply it to your life, in your situation, right now. That's what you should be focused on. That book has helped so many people turn their lives around, improve themselves, work with other people, build relationships with other people. Check it out for yourself. I would recommend it normally. Like I said, I thought it was kind of obvious. I'm like, yeah, this is like the top 5, top 10 to read. But you know what? Especially because I've seen what this young man has accomplished, Jeff. I know you can pull from it. You can pull from it and you can learn something. Whether it's all the practices, all the principles, all the philosophies in the book, or just its key aspects. Check it out. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. Great book. Easy read. I've brought that up about quite a few books, but here's the most important thing. Quick to apply. Quick to apply. And that's the most important factor, as I always bring up with any book recommendation from every episode, is that it has to be something you can apply immediately. And I tell you right now, you can immediately start putting the different practices into action based on where you are and how it works best for your life. So go for it. Let me know what you think. And once again, if you do have a book recommendation, we probably should start a book club by now. I just thought about that. We should start a book club. In fact, if you guys want to see it, I'll make a book list. And I'll put it either in Goodreads or Amazon or somewhere like that where we can share it and we can have a chit chat about it. But I will make a book list. If you guys want to see a book list, if you guys want to see kind of like not necessarily a book club, but at least a book list of everything. We've done that in the past episode. It's actually on our website. But if you want to see a book list where we can, share books and we can share thoughts like that, it's something we could put together real quick. Let me know in the comments, and we'll be happy to do that. So with that, thanks, Jeff, for stopping by, helping out, sharing. Shared many ways to not only get in contact with him, but most importantly, he shared some quick drops and nuggets of knowledge that you could take right now. And of course, if you need financial advice when it comes to, whether it be your personal taxes, business taxes, Jeff and his team, I've trusted them multiple years. I know quite a few business owners who have trusted them over the years. Cannot recommend him enough on this one. Definitely suggest he's a great, not only a great individual to work with, but his team is very knowledgeable and they're great to work with as well. So we have links to contact him and his group, but also his book that he published. He said he's published quite a few books. Like I said, I knew of a couple of them, didn't know the last one actually. But check out his book. But the book of the episode is, of course, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Let us know what you think. And of course, finally, let me know if you want to see a book club. We could hook that up and make it happen. With that, guys, thank you so much for joining once again for the Ambition Show podcast. I've been your host, Aaron Muhammad. Best to you and yours. Get them taxes done. I'm going to say it once. I'm going to say it twice. Just get them out of the way. Because let me tell you, if they got Capone, they're going to get you. You got to laugh. When you talk about taxes, you got to find a way to laugh, right? Right? So, I'm just saying. Get on it. Peace.